have no idea what you're about. Tell me in a sentence who you are.
I'm nobody. I'm a tramp, a bum, a hobo. I'm a boxcar and a jug of wine. And a straight racer if you get too close to me.
Believe me, if I started murdering people, there'd be none of you left.
Who is Captain Dionysus Adoneus, a Shinigami of the Division 5? Well, Dionysus, his alias, Bacchus, or Bacchus, by the Romans. His age, unknown and too drunk to figure it out. His visual age looks to be around 35 or 37. He is a male. His residence is the 5th Division. His race is a Shinigami. And his affiliation is the Gote 13. The rank that he has ascertained is 5th Division Captain. As for his Zanpakuto, its name is Aulos. Aulos' spirit resembles that of a young female, with very long flowing white hair. Her petite body and childish appearance have done wonders for keeping Dionysus from hitting on her. Oddly enough, though, she drinks even more than him. It's true, once he got into a contest with her to see who could drink the most. She totally drank him under the table. But stories aside, Aulus is a drunk. Not always a mean drunk, but damn, she makes Dionysus look sober. And that's saying a lot. For the most part, she gets along with Dionysus. Although, it's not like they have much to argue about. As for the sword's inner world, Aulus' inner world is one big party. Where talking balloons of all sizes, tons of tables with plenty of food, and of course even more alcohol. In fact, Aulus even has a huge house she uses just for stocking up on booze. Where in this world, a spirit could even buy booze for an inner world is beyond Dionysus. But hey, open bar. So aside from the strangely colored festive surroundings, there's not really much else. The sword's appearance, Aulus at first and pretty much last glance, appears to be a typical Okashi-style Zanpakuto. The sheath is a slick gem black, and despite its plain appearance, has 3 thinly traced gold-colored rings around the bottom. The blade itself is a shiny steel color, with a bit of rune, or possibly some other form of marking. However, honestly, it appears to be more along the lines of drunken etching than any form of written language. With a black and gold hand guard, with which there are 2 parallel oval spaces alongside the blade, the hilt is also darkened, although more of a deep navy blue than a black. It also has gold trim to it as well. So the Shikai, or first release phrase is inebriation. In its appearance, surprisingly, Aulus doesn't change by much. In fact, if one were to take a glance at the weapon, they might not think it had changed at all. The blade itself doesn't look like much from the outside. However, on the inside, there is even less. Yes, the blade of Aulus has grown thicker by such a small amount it's hard to notice. But thanks to it, the inside is rather bare and hollow. A series of holes line the blade of Aulus, although they aren't very large and don't appear to hold much of a purpose. Despite that, one might think the blade is still as durable as it had always been, and there doesn't seem to be much disadvantage to its change. Its abilities. Imagine if someone were to drink constantly, each and every day, as much as they could or wanted. Now multiply that by roughly 10. Aulus' power doesn't come or really rely on the sword in this form per se. Rather, the important change happens within Dionysus' body. When Dionysus vomits, his vomit contains well over a healthy dose of alcohol, practically 100% alcohol, 10% vomit, for a 110% kind of attack. Despite the fact that having this kind of substance inside his body, Dionysus doesn't seem to suffer at all, or really even notice. However, should the vomit find its way into another person, they would quickly find themselves suffering at the hands of a massive amount of alcohol content. Clearly, the more that gets inside their body, the more wasted the person will in turn become. However, even if the vomit doesn't enter the person's body directly, the smell is something horrible. Seriously. Have you ever been stuck in a small car with the windows up and 10 drunk people who all vomit at the same time? The smell is so unbelievably unpleasant that it's near impossible to say anyone could bear the stench. Dionysus, however, seems to have grown used to the smell of his own vomit, and despite how bad it might smell to others, the smell to him is by far reduced. Although, it's not really a power, so much as just physics, perhaps. In the Shikai form, Alos produces a sound when moved through the air similar to that of a flute. Bankai, or the second release, name is Descent of Perpetual Madness. Dionysus goes through a far more dramatic change in appearance after releasing his Bankai. Now, with his chest bare, and red, almost tribal markings along his torso, Dionysus' lower body is covered in a gold-colored armor. A cape of sorts flows from his lower back of his armor, and appears to be made from fox skin. A chain, just as colorfully golden as his armor, is wrapped around his waist, and usually around his arm as well. As far as his weapon is concerned, Aulos has become an even larger instrument of war, so to speak, resembling something along the lines of a spear. The weapon is lined with various holes and hollowed-out points, something similar to that of a flute. 2 rather small, bull-like horns protrude from either side of Dionysus' head. The Bankai's abilities. Dionysus' Bankai is something to be admired. Everything inside his body, blood, vomit, urine, etc., has gained the alcoholic properties of his Shikai form. Just as in his Shikai, should any liquid from inside his body enter someone else's body, depending on the amount that the other person will become intoxicated to varying degrees. Even Dionysus' breath reeks of such a thick stench of booze that it might make those who smell it sick to their stomach. One rather new and interesting addition to the liquids from Dionysus' body, however, is the hallucinogenic properties it now contains. Maybe it's from the massive amounts of alcohol, but these reality-defying liquids seem to reflect a variety of different emotional, tugging images back at those who look into them. Should someone look directly at the liquids, for example, images of things from their past, thoughts, or even fears will reflect back at them, similar to how one might see a reflection when looking into water. Only the person looking into the hallucination will see their own hallucination. For example, if there are 2 different people looking into the same pool of fluid, they will each see their own individual hallucination. However, will be unable to see the others. These images can be powerful in a sense, possibly bringing an opponent into a fit of rage, tear-riddled depression, insane laughter, or even cowering fear. The range of emotion is tied directly to the person in any traumatic or joyful moments that may reflect back at them. As for Aulos itself, despite its change in appearance and larger qualities, it functions essentially in the same manner as its Shikai version. However, there is one key difference that is brought about by the hallucinogenic properties of Dionysus' liquids, and that is how people who have seen the hallucinations interpret the sound produced by Aulos. An example could be that if someone observes a hallucination of someone screaming from a kind of liquid that came from Dionysus, should Dionysus move Aulos through the air instead of sounding something like a flute, it will sound exactly like the person screaming. The sounds are interpreted by the individual, same as the hallucination. As such, two different people could interpret the sound in two different ways. Another interesting little fact is that this sound perception will grasp anyone who has seen one of Dionysus' hallucinations. So even if someone were to try and close their eyes as to not see the hallucination anymore, the sound will still resonate inside their head to whatever the last images they had seen were. For example, if someone is watching a loved one being taken advantage of sexually and attempted to close their eyes as to not see the hallucination, the sound of the last part they saw will continue to loop over and over and over in place of Alos' movement. Needless to say, under the right conditions, Dionysus' Bankai can be downright maddening, causing any opponent who enters his hallucinations to suffer at the hands of mental abuse. However, there is one very major flaw to Dionysus' Bankai. If his opponent never sees even a glimpse of his hallucination, then Alos will sound like a regular spear, simply moving through the air. In essence, it would void any benefit Dionysus may gain from being in Bankai, until they have seen his hallucination. His Kido. Bakudo, binding spells up to 81. Haudo, destructive spells, none. Healing spells, none. Other, Shunpo, or high-speed movement. Weapons and items, booze. Personality, the inspirer of ritual madness and ecstasy. He is, after all, the god of wine, no? Not much is really known about his personal interests aside from what his seemingly endless drinking habit and enjoyments the world has to provide, such as theater, lust, or fine foods and clothing. Dionysus is usually seen in a constant state of drunkenness, mostly just being a harmless fool of a drunk. He can't help but make advances on a cute girl if he sees one. In fact, women seem to be one of his many flaws, really. It's rather troublesome. However, you can't be too harsh on a drunk, now can you? Dionysus enjoys the theater, drama, action, romance. He enjoys watching the emotions of others make twists and turns as a story unfolds. It is one of his guilty pleasures, really, along with drinking and women. His history. With a mother who was but a mortal woman, Semele, the daughter of King Cadmus of Thebes, and his father being none other than Zeus, the king of the gods, Dionysus' would-be mother was confronted by Zeus' wife, Hera, who was bent on punishing Semele for Zeus' affair. Hera, having tricked Semele into calling forth Zeus, had planted the final seed of despair for the human, as Semele died upon seeing Zeus' true form. Zeus, however, rescued Dionysus by sewing him into his own thigh. After a few months passed, Dionysus was finally born on the Mount Pramnos, in the island of Icaria. Going to release the now fully grown baby from his thigh, Dionysus was removed. It's not quite clear how Dionysus' childhood unfolded, although he has enjoyed spreading rumors and word of mouth along the humans in the past. It's hard to tell where fiction begins and truth ends. However, one thing is more than likely the root of truth, so to speak. Dionysus' discovery of the culture of the vine and the mode of extracting its precious juice. However, Hera struck Dionysus down with madness. Forced to wander through the earth, he eventually came upon Cybele. It's believed, through one means or another, it's thought that she was able to cure Dionysus of his madness, although exactly what happened or how is as unknown as what he did next. As a young man, however, Dionysus was exceptionally attractive. It's thought that some foolish humans had attempted to kidnap him one day while he was pretending to be one of them. However, only foul stories are told of what went on in those waters. Men were driven to madness, that much is sure. Once Dionysus found his old schoolmaster and foster father, Adoneus, missing. Unknown to Dionysus, his schoolmaster had come into the possession of Midas, which had taken care of the man for at least 11 days' time. When Adoneus had returned to him, Dionysus saw a chance to view the theatrics of life through Midas, offering Midas a reward of whatever he wanted. The wish was soon granted, and the sly Dionysus simply sat back and watched the story unfold before him. Such amazing and powerful emotions were shown, such joy at the sight of something as simple as gold, and then soon came the anger and sadness, followed by hate. Ah yes, such powerful emotions for a splendid story. Satisfied that he had obtained what he wanted, Dionysus ignored Midas's pleas, simply leaving on his way without a word or appearance. Where the myth begins and the truth ends can be up to those who observe. However, the only thing anyone can ever really be sure of is known now in the present. Dionysus is a Shinigami, one of few who have unlocked a Shikai and Bankai, and has rose to the rank of Captain of the 5th Division. Despite how he may have gotten there or who he may have pissed off along the way, Dionysus doesn't appear to let that get in his way of his ever-growing joys he finds around himself. Dionysus is a tall, slender, and somewhat feminine man. Simply put, he could easily be considered a pretty boy. He has your typical long, flowing, light brown hair that is cut just under shoulder length. His eyes are a coy and almost unnatural brown, and his face is bare and rather smooth. Bearing a somewhat athletic build, Dionysus can hardly ever be seen with a truly serious expression. More than likely, you will see him with some form of smile or some other joy.